prime thing is you have to win.
Ill intent, violence, physicality, pain. Enough is enough.
All right, welcome back to the Just Win podcast. We are live after the Raiders lost 34-19 to the Miami Dolphins in Miami. That's Sean Reed. That's Vic Tafer. They were at the game to witness it live. I'm Ted Wynn. I'm in the Bay Area, but I'm sure it felt just as dirty watching that game at home than it did live.
You felt dirty?
Why'd you feel
I
dirty?
mean, it's just,
What?
when you get whooped that badly, it just doesn't feel right, So it's is
Come
what
on,
it
man. It
is.
was a one-score game with 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Come
Didn't feel
on,
like it.
man.
It didn't feel like a one-score game, even though it was, because man, Miami just milked the clock. What did they score on? Did they only not score on one drive?
The end of the first half, when time ran out. Otherwise, they were 6 for 6. Scoring.
They just milked the clock every single time. So it just felt like they were in control of that game, even though the score did seem close. But yeah, I think we'll get into I think one big topic in that game was a lot of defensive miscommunications. And I guess is to be expected. Nate Hobbs is a big part of communication. They're already missing Epps, who's a big part of their communication, and then they lose Jacorin Bennett on the first drive of the game. So you're going in there with I don't know what, 2 members of your starting secondary left, and you can see the miscommunications all over the field, and it severely affected the game.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it early and late. Even before those injuries had fully hit. In the first quarter on Janu Smith's first touchdown. It's kind of similar play. He went in motion. Obviously, the Dolphins run a ton of motion and shifts, and we talked about the importance of eye discipline going into this one. And when he motioned to the left, Isaiah Polamau was trying to follow him. It seemed like the better move would have been to have Richardson bump over and slide up since he had the outside route, but he wasn't able to get over in time. And Smith was wide open for a touchdown on that fourth down early in the game. That was a pretty big pivot point. And then in the fourth quarter, obviously the big one on Smith's 57-yard touchdown. It looked like the issue. I looked back at the play a few times. Was the Raiders were in cover zero. For people who don't know, it's no safeties, just man coverage across the board. And they actually had enough guys to have everybody covered, but they sent a guy in motion right before the snap, and the Raiders didn't adjust to it properly. Divine Diablo was on that side, but he didn't drop back in coverage. He went on a blitz, and so that left them with 2 guys trying to cover 3 guys, and that's obviously the numbers are not in your favor there unless your blitz gets home. So Richardson had to pick between Mostert and Smith. He picked Mostert, and that left Smith wide open for that game stealing touchdown. And like you said, I mean, that's just communication. It's not necessarily surprising given how many guys that they had that aren't used to playing out there, and guys that aren't used to playing with one another more specifically. But it cost him pretty big in this one.
Yeah, on that Janu Smith touchdown, when Janu Smith motioned over, Spillane was trying to get somebody's attention to move over with him. I think it was supposed to be Isaiah Palomau's assignment to go cover him, because what happened was Palomau and Spillane were both covering one receiver to the weak side, and then you have nobody on Janu Smith to the strong side. And
On
that's
the
one of those
second one, I
things.
think it was. I think he was talking to Trayvon Merrick. I'm pretty sure because it looked like he's looking at Merrick, and Merrick he heard him. It looked like he looked at him, but for some reason, I think the issue was Diablo. I'm not sure if Diablo was supposed to blitz or not there. Like because he initially took a step back and then he just takes off after Tua, and so either way they had 2-on-3 on that side. So I don't
Yeah.
know if it was a matter of, like you said, pull him out on the other side of the field if he was supposed to adjust or if Spillane was supposed to come over. But it was kind of weird. They didn't, even though they were in man coverage, like
But you
because
did end up with Palomau and Spillane on one receiver, though, which is not supposed
yeah,
to happen.
yeah, I think because Smith didn't go into motion with Smythe or however you pronounce his name. And Spillane was initially on him. I don't know why he didn't follow him across the formation. That's the part that's a little weird. He looked like he was passing it off instead of running with the guy, and so that's why he ended up on the same side as Hill.
Yeah,
Anyway, it was clear that they fucked it up. Whatever they're supposed to do did not happen as planned on that long touchdown. So, and
yeah,
that's it's on the players. It shows inexperience, but it's also that's a coaching point. Just how we talked about on the offensive side of the ball all year and the issues they've been having with missed assignments and whatnot. Same thing applies, on the defensive end.
yeah. Miscommunications were happening on a very first drive too. I mean, there was a Achan long pass. I think it might have been on third down that was caused by miscommunication, and then that first Janu Smith touchdown, like you guys mentioned, was a it wasn't a miscommunication. It was just so this is the problem that the Raiders defense has had before, where they're when they're in man coverage, sometimes they try to get a call in to pass off. Like when you're in a bunch, you want to pass off certain routes because you don't want to get picked. The Raiders have had problems with that. So I think maybe in this game with the new DBs, they were like, all right, we're not passing anything off. We're just going to stick on our guys. But when you do that, teams could pick you. And the Raiders got picked multiple times in this game because they refused to switch guys off. And I kind of get it because, you have a bunch of new defensive backs in there. They don't really trust their communication. But that was a big issue in this game. And as I mentioned, it was kind of an issue beforehand. So not a great excuse, but definitely a lot tougher to do when you have new guys in there.
We did ask Pierce though about that first touchdown, and he said it was miscommunication on that play. I think because you looked at it at the
Yeah.
first view, I thought Palomalo was just late chasing down Smith across the
Mhm.
motion, but I think you mentioned a young guy came in, and maybe one of the young cornerbacks came in. I think there was supposed to be a handoff or something, but clearly, when a guy comes across you and you see him
So they were
moving,
trying to get a handoff, or
yeah,
they
you see a
were
guy
trying to get
move,
a pass off.
yeah, you see a guy in motion coming towards you. That guy should be the guy who scores wide open. That's not the way it's supposed to work out. So.
Mhm.
Yeah, I talked to Pullum after the game. He said it was miscommunication, and it looked like it was Richardson on that side.
Yeah.
Richardson was the furthest. It was Merrick on the inside, and then Richardson on the outside. So I'm assuming that it would have been Richardson that needed to bump over and cover the outside route. And I mean, he's a rookie. I know
Mhm.
he started to play a little bit more the last couple of weeks, but this was by far the most playing time that he's received in the game so far this season. And there were some growing pains that came with it.
Yeah.
He had a really rough game, and obviously it's a really tough matchup. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waller, two of the best guys in the league. You mentioned all the different guys coming in, moving parts, the communication. I mean, at the end of the game, Jack Jones is also out. He also got dinged up, so you had all new guys back there. So I think it was a lot for a young guy, a rookie who's just starting to play a little bit to really try to get his head around. He didn't have a good game today, so it's just you kind of learn from it and you move on, I guess.
Let's give Jack Jones a little bit of a shout out just because he's had his troubles tackling, and it felt like the Miami Dolphins were purposely trying to challenge him to make some tackles, and he did pretty well. He did miss one tackle that led to a big Achan run, but he got I think two TFLs and
Yeah.
another pretty big tackle in the flats. So he I think he knew that the Dolphins were going to challenge him, and he kind of stepped up. So a little bit of a silver lining there. But let's move on to our next subject. Max Crosby says, we're just playing for pride at this point, which I think we kind of all understood at this point in the season. But I guess is a little surprising to hear Max Crosby, who doesn't, really say stuff like that, say this.
I wasn't surprised, man. I think, and they just lost. They're 2-8. They've lost six in a row. So I don't know. I mean, I know people can say, we're going to win the rest of our games, but I think he clearly see that's not going to happen. I think he was also frustrated. He had a rough game. I think they a lot of double teams, and first time I can remember, he didn't touch the quarterback the whole game. Like that's he had no stats really at all. So I'm sure he was frustrated. I'm sure, yeah, like you said, the Dolphins offense scored every time they had the ball. So I think his hopes, at this point, all I can do is hope that he makes some improvements and remain competitive the rest of the way.
And I think it was a recent appearance on like his weekly like Sirius XM spot. I think I forget the exact words that he used, but he was basically like, I think his reference was like if we're not going to be at the mountaintop this season, we can at least ruin some other people's season. And so it's, kind of stuff from a similar vein. Like I think he and a lot of other people in the franchise understand if they're not really doing anything this year in terms of making the playoffs or having that kind of success. And I mean, all of us watching can see that. So I know some people, make it upset by that or not like that he said that publicly, but I mean, it's the truth, you know. So, and it's also like, I mean, it, he's saying that he still has something to play for. It's just not team success. It's pride, and I don't think this is a matter of effort. Like I know that that's been like brought up a lot this season ever since Antonio Pierce had that business decisions comment back in week 3. But I think they're trying hard. I just don't think they're very good. So um, doesn't change the outcome. But I don't think this is like a situation where like the team is quitting or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's a very frustrating loss. I mean, they're all frustrating up to some degree, but this one, you're coming off the bye week. You made some coaching changes. A lot of talk about a reset button, and the guys are like, I think, like Tashan said, they're still practicing hard. Regarding interest, the guys all come in, they all lift weights on Monday. It's that no one's like slacking off. They're kind of locked in, and yeah, they thought this week that maybe they had some tweaks in offense, so that maybe to help things, but yeah, the offense was better, I guess. They had a season high in first downs, which I thought was a surprising stat 22 first downs. But, they didn't score. And then they still had some mistakes, but the running game can't get going. So I just think that the frustration's probably at a higher point post game because of the bye week, because of the reset thing, because, this is a winnable game. They figured the Dolphins were also, were they 2-6, 2-7, I think, coming in?
They had 3 wins
3-1, so
coming in.
3-6 coming in. So yeah, it's a team you think that maybe coming off a short week, a long trip from LA, maybe you have a chance to win. And they hung around, but they never led, and never really gave you the sense that they were in good shape in this game. They kind of always were just a little bit short in offense and defense.
And speaking of being honest and coaching changes, on the broadcast, it was either Ross Tucker or somebody else on the broadcast mentioned that Antonio Pierce was very honest about the firing of Luke Getsy and how he's trying to save his own job. So uh, I thought that was a pretty surprising moment, but I mean, whatever. I mean, we all knew what it is. But moving on to Scott Turner as offensive coordinator, I thought the offense did look better. I mean, this is a Miami Dolphins defense that was playing pretty well, played their best game against the Rams the week before. And the Raiders were able to move the ball pretty easily on them. Obviously, they kind of got stopped in the red zone, some boneheaded mistakes. But I think one big thing I noticed was they weren't trying to establish the run. I mean, they knew they couldn't run the ball, and I think running backs only had about 10 carries in this game, and there was a bunch of fly sweeps. I think, and we talked about it. Like fly sweeps are a good answer for this offense, just to get creative and get the ball in the hands of other players. But yeah, there wasn't really any run pass sequences. Maybe there was one or two. I didn't really count, but I didn't I don't remember any. I just thought they looked a little bit smoother. So maybe Scott Turner is a little bit better for this offense.
I thought they tried to get the run game going. They kind of, I think Samir White had 4 carries for 6 yards early on. And it was clear it wasn't there. And again, I'm not, I mean, Samir's had a really rough year, but today at least I thought there was nowhere to run. I thought when he got the ball, there were bodies all over right in front of him. So and they did kind of give up. I think the final stats were they had 11 carries for 29 yards. The 3 running backs had more of their yards from the receivers. The 2 plays by Myers and Tucker got like 27 yards. Yeah, I mean, they want to run the ball, they can't. I mean, that's just but but you're right. I think Gardner's more efficient today. I think they had some. They got the ball quicker. I think he was better. He's still not great on his feet and scrambling, but I thought he was better today than he has been as far as getting out of trouble and making some plays. But and yeah, and the, we talked about last week how we thought that maybe Jalen Ramsey would cover Brock Flowers, but he didn't, and Brock dominated. Brock had 13 catches for 1 billion yards, and just a guy who, for this team to score, he made it get the ball more often than that. So I just think he's the one guy they have, and clearly a special player.
Yeah, I like
Yeah,
the different ways that they got the ball to Bowers. Like they handed the ball off to him. They had him in the backfield a couple times running choice routes. And that's one of the things that Scott Turner does. I think he does a pretty good job of moving guys around.
yeah, yeah. I mean, them trying to run the ball. I mean, they started Zamir White his first start in a while, and then switched to Alexander Madison. Neither one of them really did anything on the ground game. Madison, at least, they got him going in the pass game. I think he finished with like around 50 receiving yards. And then Amir Abdullah got involved, had a pretty nice touchdown catch during the game as well. And so that's kind of seems like how they're trying to supplement, um, or replace the run game is those quick passes that kind of end up being runs essentially. And so if they can't run the ball traditionally, trying to find other ways to get those guys in space and help them make plays. But yeah, I thought the offense, like you said, I guess the operation looked a little bit cleaner, but and it was also just kind of like a weird game. We mentioned earlier, like the Dolphins, really both teams had really long drives early on in the game. Like I think in the first quarter they each had one possession, and second quarter was something similar. And so the Raiders didn't end up scoring their first touchdown until I think it was like late in the third quarter. And so they had a couple field goal drives, and I think that's kind of the next step. Like Vic mentioned they had the most first downs that they had in the game this year. They moved the ball, decently well, but they just couldn't finish drives. That was really the issue. Was I think they had, three red zone possessions and only scored a touchdown on one of them. And so, that's kind of the next step. We'll see. Obviously it's week one with Scott Turner. We'll see if they're able to build upon this moving forward.
I was gonna say, as far as the run game going forward, I know Abdullah was in there because Madison was hurt. He hurt his ankle. After the game, he had a boot on his left foot. So I'm not sure what the long term outlook for that's going to be, but clearly he couldn't go back in the game, and that would definitely affect their run game going forward. If Abdullah, a nice move and scored. He's always been a 10th year in the league. He's always been a solid guy. Maybe he has more of a role going forward, but we'll see. They got to figure out. He was talking after the game with me, and he said, it's very frustrating because they think they have the horses in the running back room to get the job done, and I think the guys up front should be able to get them holes. They just can't get the ball going, so they can't get the running game going. But yeah, they'll keep trying, I guess.
You know what? I take back everything I've said about benching Gardner Minshew. You keep that guy in there and let him play because he's the perfect tanking quarterback. Like he moves the ball between the 20s and then he gets into the red zone and he doesn't finish. He keeps the game lightweight, entertaining, but like you don't really have a chance to win. So just keep him in there. This is good. This is good. Just keep losing. Go get your quarterback.
Competitive losses, right?
Yeah, the elegant tank.
That's the motto. Yeah, I guess we didn't really talk about the offensive line, but I think this was another new starting group for them. So they
Mm.
started Jordan Meredith at left guard, Dylan Parham at right guard, and then Jackson Powers Johnson started at center again. They're still kind of, obviously they also promoted Joe Philbin to interim offensive line coach. So there was a change there as well as the Scott Turner move, and it didn't look too good today either. I mean, the pass protection, Minshew holds on to the ball long, and so some of those sacks I think were as much as they were on him as much as anybody. But pass protection wasn't great, I didn't think, and the run blocking was bad as it's been all season. And so, I'm not saying that the running backs haven't missed holes or they couldn't be doing better than they are, but with the way this offensive line is playing right now, I think it's just going to be tough for them. And it seems like, you know, I mean, we're 11 games into the season at this point. It's probably going to be what it is for this year, but they have some young players that could potentially get better moving forward. Powers Johnson, DJ Glaze, but they're rookies and they're going to have those growing pains, and they clearly need to make some additions to that room in the off season and give those guys some more time to develop because with the way they're playing right now, it's kind of hard for this offense to be consistent.
I'll add that I think the Dolphins had a pretty good D line. They did a good job staying up their stunts, some of the movements they had. So I think Colton and Miller were saying how they thought they were better at communicating up front, trying to get guys on the same page, but also at the same time, he gave the Dolphins a lot of credit for like doing some different things, kind of confusing them at times. And I think that's all. It's a chess match. So you make your moves, other team makes theirs, and it kind of sometimes doesn't work out the way you want. But I think if they have this five going forward, maybe they have a chance to get a little better and get some continuity.
Yeah, I thought there were times when Minshew had really nice pockets, and there was some times where there was miscommunications, and it's going to happen with this young line. Yeah, I agree. It's good. Just keep this five on. If you can keep this five on the field, let them get better, let them kind of gel a little bit and get some chemistry. I think they'll get better as the season goes along, and offensively, that's probably going to be one of the top things you look for, is because like this line can be a line that could be around for the next few years. So potentially, just watch how they develop. And obviously, the number one thing you're watching out for on offense is Brock Bowers and how he just continues to show he's going to be one of the he's going to be a top two, top three tight end in the league in a year or two. So you guys want to talk a little bit about Brock Bowers' big day?
Yeah, I mean, he was pretty incredible today. I mean, he's been, really good all season, but this was definitely, his signature performance. I mean, 13 catches, 126 yards, and a touchdown. Those catches in yards are high for him, and that's at least since, I think since 1960, they say it's the most catches by a rookie tight end in a game in NFL history. So, I know he had a couple at the end there that were kind of, kind of bullshit, extra stat padding catches, but he had a great game even before that last kind of garbage time drive. I know he had a nice little dance there after his touchdown catch, but not for this podcast. But yeah, he had a pretty great game. Minshew was feeding it to him. We talked about it. I mean, they don't really have like a go-to traditional wide receiver, but he's clearly the number one option on offense, and I mean he's the best player on offense at this point already as a rookie. Which, if Devontae, with Devontae being gone, it kind of opened up the door for him to have this bigger role. He's lived up to expectations and then some, and got to see him working in concert with Michael Mayer a little bit today. I know Mayer didn't have a big game statistically himself, but I think he had a couple opportunities to have.
He was
Um,
close. He was close.
yeah, I think Minshew missed him on that one where he fell down. Um, he kind of lost his footing a little bit, but I think he lost his footing because Minshew threw it out a little bit too in front of him. And so I think even though Mayer didn't have a crazy statistical game, I think this is kind of the first game that we saw the vision that they had this offseason when they put these two guys together.
I think great players make you pay for mistakes. I think you see Bowers is that already. Like in that one play where he scored on, I think it was Jordan Poyer, he went in for the tackle on the sideline and he missed him and didn't push him out of bounds. He missed the tackle and didn't get him out of bounds. And Bowers took off and his touchdown. So he has that special yards after catch ability, and it really keeps he puts a lot of pressure on defenses. You make a mistake, he'll make you pay. And I think that's and again I'm sure he was the number one guy on their scouting report. The guy we have to stop Brock Bowers. You got to do this, do that, and he put up huge numbers. And I just think if you're a Rays fan, you definitely can be excited about his future because just think. I don't want to say it's going to sound mean, but when he gets a real quarterback, he's going to be even better. So I just think it's yeah. At least you have that, Raider fans. At least you have Brock Bowers. It's definitely a nice centerpiece and a future star to be excited about.
Yeah, the first catch that Bowers had, he was running, I think it was a choice route against Jordan Brooks, who's a pretty good coverage linebacker. I don't know why he's wearing number 20 though. It's a horrendous number for a linebacker. But he gave him a little move at the top of the route and just left him in the dust. Like there was no chance. And like you mentioned, like the yards after the catch is going to be how he gets all his production or a lot of his productions because he's so good after the catch. And a big part of it is just how smoothly he catches with his hands. Like some guys catch with their bodies and they have to slow down, but the way he catches the ball is just so smooth. The way he's able to transition into becoming a runner. So yeah, it's exciting to see Brock Bowers pay off this quickly, especially with all of the Raiders draft picks in which you kind of have to just like squint and think of different excuses for why they're not playing well. For Brock Bowers to come out and just dominate early in his career is a nice change up, I suppose. All right. So, any more things from the game
Um,
injury wise?
yeah, I guess other injuries, Jacorian Bennett, he hurt his shoulder in the first quarter and got ruled out. We don't really have an update on his status. And Jack Jones, he hurt his back. I think it was the third quarter. He was down for a while and he was moving pretty slow in the locker room. Seemed to be in a pretty good amount of pain. So, two starting outside cornerbacks. Nate Hobbs didn't play in this game due to ankle injuries. They're already kind of thin at cornerback. Um, and so those injuries definitely hurt. And then Vic mentioned Alexander Madison got a little banged up. And I think there was one other that I'm forgetting right now. Yeah, Jameer White hurt his quad, which is something that had been bothering him. I remember him popping up on the injury report a couple weeks ago with a quad injury, and so they had a few injuries in this one. They've been really hit up by injuries a lot throughout this entire season. It's been pretty rough for them. They've had some games where they've had a few significant players get knocked out unexpectedly, and that's obviously tougher to adjust to than when you know a guy that's not going to play the whole week. Injuries aren't an excuse. Like every team in the NFL deals with injuries, of course, but the Raiders have been like really, 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 really injured, and the team already isn't that good. So I do kind of give them a little bit of like an excuse for you know how they're playing.
Yeah, the two positions where it's really tough to deal with injuries with is offensive line and defensive back. And against the Bengals, obviously, they had a ton of offensive line injuries. And then against this team, the Miami Dolphins, you're missing two starters with the after the Corey Bennett injury, and we saw the miscommunications, and it's tough, and it's even tougher when you have cluster injuries and you're missing multiple guys. So not an excuse, but just very tough to overcome, especially against a team with the weapons that the Miami Dolphins have. Thank you guys
Ah, okay.
for joining us and trying to make sense of the loss and trying to find a silver lining here. So we will catch you guys on Friday. We'll see you next week.
All right, guys, hang in there.